So, hey Tristan, while we have you on, looks like you are on the camera right now. Can you introduce yourself a little bit?
So I'm Tristan Tillett. I'm a soccer dad and fitness coach, professional type individual, I guess you could call it. I live in Birmingham, Alabama. Was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. Grew up as a son of a coach. He was a coach where I was born, so just had the privilege of growing up in a household where sports were strongly encouraged, and I was empowered to be a youth athlete, and have kind of followed that dream and passion ever since.
That is awesome. And you are where now?
Birmingham, Alabama.
So you are literally like from all over the place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, New Orleans, we're only probably 4.5 hours away. So I was born there. We moved here. My dad was a high school coach for probably 17, 18 years. And then he had a chance to get into college. Couldn't really pass up that opportunity. So he actually, his first college job was at Mississippi State back in, I think, 1991. My mom and I stayed in New Orleans, so he moved. So I get Joe and Bella's story for sure, just in terms of like being away and how challenging that can be. Which it's not as far as LA to Honolulu, but Starkville to New Orleans is probably maybe further in a lot of realms for sure. Where my mom said, "There's no way that we're moving to Starkville, Mississippi. You've lost your mind." So we stayed in inner city New Orleans, and he was at Mississippi State for a year, and he had the opportunity, and we had the blessing where he was able to come back and coach at Tulane
Cool.
for a year, and then he got an offer to be the top assistant coach at Samford University, which a lot of times is you have a chance to kind of work your way up. It's because the staff before you didn't do a good job. So the staff before the head coach and my father got there, they went 6-22 and followed it up with coincidentally another 6-22 years. So they were kind of let go. And then he was an assistant there for 6 years. I went away to Georgia to play college basketball and then came back and coached with him as he became a head coach, and then have kind of been in Birmingham ever since then. So my kids are here, so I'm in Birmingham. So we have another 4 years or so, and then our youngest twins will be graduated, and then we'll kind of see where we're off to next.
What about you, Joe?
The whole thing?
Well, I don't know, the Reader's Digest version?
Reader's Digest version. I'm Joe Ballard. I am a soccer dad to 2 soccer playing girls, 11 and 14. I grew up in Pasadena, California. I'm an athletic trainer by trade, the son of 2 coaches, and played, quotes, college basketball a little bit, and then got into athletic training at Long Beach State, and then Loyola Marymount University.
Oh, that's where I went.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. Met my wife there playing college soccer. I was the athletic trainer. She was on the team. And, yeah, we got married, and then we decided to move to her home in Honolulu, Hawaii. And we had kids. And then when our oldest decided she wanted to play soccer and realized it wasn't happening too much in Hawaii, we moved her and I to Los Angeles, where her and I, since she's been 8, live about 10 months out of the year. And then we go back to Hawaii for usually Christmas time and then July. And we've been doing that since she was 8, and she's 14 now.
Wow. So you guys are like moving back and forth, huh?
Yeah, it started a little bit. We would switch. My wife would come out for a little bit, and I would go out back home with my other daughter. But it turned out it was a little easier for me just to stay. So, yeah. That's just kind of how it's been, and we've figured it out. It's not always the best, but we get it done. And yeah.
So it looks like that you and both of your families you've been deep into the coaching, youth sports world, huh?
That's all I've ever known, man. And my wife's the girls director here of a local club. So, yeah, our kids have no chance.
No chance. No. Both my brothers played college sports also. You know, my dad dabbled in the NFL for a couple of years and got cut. You know, my mom was a basketball coach. My dad was a high school football coach. So it's always been
You guys
sport.
really hate sports.
Yeah.
That's generally why we're perceived as the enemy, Joe, by the way.
It does have a, it does.
Honestly, yeah.
Enemy of who? Or whom? Who would
Well,
consider you the enemy?
I'll say, well, he's the coach, so I'll give him a little pass, and I'll say this. I'll save him from having to say it. But like for me, you know, as soon as you say to a coach, or they figure out, usually they'll figure out that you kind of know a little bit what's going on, and you'll see, okay, well, for example, my biggest pet peeve is a coach prepared for a practice session? You know, are they on their phone before when I get there, or is their grid already set up? Did they session plan it? Is it locked tight all the way through, soup to nuts? Is it good, or are you just kind of playing it off the cuff? And then if I call you on it, you're going to get upset because now you know I know what's up. And then once that happens and that cat's out of the bag, you're the enemy.
Yeah.
Like that. What about you, Tristan?
No, I mean, that right there, where it's just a matter of, and it's funny because like Joe's story, my story, some other buddies of mine, it's weird because we can kind of like sense being out at the fields or whatever, like kind of who comes from a certain background and maybe who doesn't. And generally the cast-offs like us are kind of in one area and other folks like in another area. And it's just interesting where like the conversation that he just had, you know, and some of the things he stated, like that's all that myself and dad generally want is like players are expected to be prepared. Like, why would we not be entitled to have some level of expectation of that, like from a coach, where our program is club neutral. So we don't endorse anybody going to this club, even though my wife is a director at one. Like if you're going to have a good experience and you're going to get better and you're going to love the game and you're having a good coach, then go play at club X or club Y or club Q or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's a matter of, you know, you having a good experience. And at the end of the day, like are the kids, that's what they are, kids, are they being taken care of? That's all we ask.
So when you walk into a field, bring your kids to practice and you don't see the coach there, and this very same coach then complains that the kids may or may not be on time for the game, or why are the kids late for practice? Does your head explode?
To a certain degree, you know, where I mean, like generally, I'm just kind of I haven't been probably within, whether it's practice or game, like 30 to 50 yards of like the actual field, like where my kids participate. I'll watch from like away, like camouflage, where like they don't even know where I am.
Yeah.
But they know where I am, kind of thing. So like I'm away and I'm just sitting there kind of watching, you know, to where honestly, I've never once like questioned the coach. Now, maybe have I had some questions? Obviously, you know, 100%. But I'm not going to walk up to John and say, "Hey, I think you should do this and that," because I don't have a soccer license. I mean, so that right there, in the mind of a club soccer director or coach, like I don't know anything because I'm not licensed. I didn't play the game. Whatever. Fine. I'm never going to question or challenge them. But to your point, like there also can't be a double standard of like, well, it's good for me. It doesn't necessarily work that way for you. There has to be a two-way street of loyalty and, you know, commitment and respect in those things, where I think that's ultimately what coaching is, whether you're on time or not, or prepared or not. But like, people are going to have good and bad days. People are going to have issues, but it can't be a matter where we have a certain standard of expectation that we expect the kids and the families to live up to here, when then thereby we're able to kind of migrate maybe a little bit below that level, per se.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add to it and say I'm kind of the same way. We'll pull up to the field. I'll stay in the car, and usually I scout out. You know, every field's kind of different in LA, but you know, the high ground away by a tree, you know, behind a pole, and kind of prop up there, and then you know, work out a little bit, and then go back to the car, and kind of you're away from the field. And it's also a two-way street with players also. Like with my oldest, we always say, you know, when you get to the field, you should already be mature enough. And we started this when she was like 10, to already have yourself warmed up, stretched, ready to go. But my thing is, you know, especially if a coach is coming from another training session, which happens a lot. So they'll be doing like the oldest of the youngers before, and then that session will end, and then they'll come right into it. a lot of it in club soccer is a parent will then grab the coach's attention. So if we only have an hour and a half for a practice or a training session, and now mom wants to talk about little Sally who didn't play on the weekend, well, you're taking away from now my kid's training time.
Yeah.
That's a problem, for one. Problem number two is on a team of 18 to 22 girls, sometimes with DA, 8 care, 5 kind of care, and the rest are just there for whatever reason. So then that brings down the level of practice. So sometimes, not all the time, there's good and bad days, of course, but you might have a session that was supposed to be an hour and a half. Now you've chopped that down with a water break to a solid hour. And I just drove 3 hours to your training session in LA traffic, and I got an hour and a half to go home. You know, am I going to say into the coach? No, but I shouldn't have to either. Not really.
The coach should kind of know.
He should know. He should know. And the other parent should know. And the other kids should know.
And the director should know.
Well, that's kind of.
And a lot of times, depending upon which team you are, especially with DA, most of the technical directors were your kid's coach, which I did not like. We were on a lot of DA teams, but two of them that we were on, the technical director was also the kid, or my daughter's coach. So if you had a complaint, it usually went from assistant coach or team mom, team manager, assistant coach, head coach, technical director, DOC. But if your technical director is the same as your coach and you had no assistant coach, you were kind of, in murky waters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting setup. Yeah, that. And a lot of times the technical directors and the DOC I've noticed the lines tend to be very blurred on that.
Can be, for sure. Can be. A lot of times, especially with DA, when it first happened, especially in SoCal, they went for a lot of technical directors came out of the college ranks. And so they wanted to get a real splashy hire, which I loved. It was great. And it worked for a little bit, but you had well-established old school DOCs who were running mega Southern California clubs who, weren't about to relinquish or change how they were kind of running a system. And you started DA like that, and it wasn't always smooth sailing with the on the field product. I wasn't always privy to what's happening off the field, but the on the field product was always a little interesting.
And so, well, now that the DA is no more, does that affect your teams or where your kids play?
Go ahead. Well, for us right now, yeah. We left, my oldest daughter was on a boys team, playing up a year, the previous year up until Christmas time, and then we switched back into the girls DA. So we only played probably 10 games with this DA club out in LA. And so, that's done, of course, where they go into, whether it's ECNL or the new, I don't know what it's called, development. Yeah, whatever it is. The new version of it, where they go into that, who knows? We'll see.
Well, they haven't decided yet?
They haven't decided.
They haven't decided yet?
Last I heard, they had not. It's a big club, and they're tied to the boys' academy side. So, how it works out with girls, what they want to do, what they don't want to do. I think they're playing it close to the vest to kind of wait, which I'm okay with. I'd rather a club wait to kind of see how it shakes out than just jump in and say, we're doing this right now, and it's been a week. Take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of teams are doing, it seems like everybody's panicking. It's like, we've known this is going to happen for months.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these rumors were not just all of a sudden, last week it was, or 2 weeks ago. We've been hearing about this for a while.
And you could see, like when we first started DA, very first year, we played up a year, and the rules were ratcheted tight. So like traveling, we first flew out from LA, North Carolina for the first showcase. Parents had to be on a separate plane. The girls had to be in these certain Nike jumpsuits. They were flying on this flight. Parents couldn't go to the hotel. They were eating this. It was locked tight. Everything was paid for. The last one we went to, you get there how you want to get there. We'll see you there. And so, you know, there was a reason why that was. And I always figured it was just, well, it was funding, you know, whether the team didn't want to fund it or it wasn't working its way down from top to bottom with DA, who knew? But there was a definite change in the vibe.
So when you were there, so you had to pay for everything yourself?
Some clubs, yes, some clubs, no. So the first DA club we were at, the girls' travel was paid for, hotel was paid for, airfare was paid for. You paid for their kit beginning of the year. Another club we went to was 100% top to bottom, the club paid. The other one we went to was parents paid full rack rate for everything. Not all parents. Some parents were free, some parents weren't. Some kids were, so that's always fun. But you know, and then that changes. So, yeah.
But then would the club fees be astronomical?
With DA, it was different. So some would waive the club fee for a player, but you would pay for the kit. And then some kids would get or apply for a U.S. soccer like scholarship, basically. So that would cover the other costs. And that was, I know some parents had to apply for that every year. Yeah. Some years they got it, and then next year they didn't, which then made it fun for how they figure out how to pay for that. Yeah. You know, it was always a moving target, which made more problems, I think, for things than not, you know. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a true academy.
Well, that is one of the big problems of this country. There's no such thing as a real academy as they do it back in Europe.
Right.
Correct.
Which is one of the biggest issues I have in the way soccer is set up here. It's like there's really no development.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, there's no other way to put it.
Well, there's no promotion relegation, so there's no reason for coaches to plant their feet and plant a flag and say we're going to be about development, where it's about, you know, whether it's pay for play or whatever, like it being about the money. It's about the money at Ajax too. It's about the money of them developing a first team player that they can sell jerseys for, or they can sell to Bayern Munich for 150 million euros. It's about the money in that system, but they get paid for developing players because of the notion of promotion, relegation, first team all the way down. I think that will, you know, help here if and when that ever happens in our maybe lifetime or kids' lifetime or grandkids' lifetime. But it would be very interesting, I think. Yeah. You know, maybe the dinosaurs will come back and then they'll be part of promotion relegation. Who knows?
There you go.
But I mean, I think that, you know, the fact that it's a pay-for-play system here and it's about the money, it's about the money in Europe and those systems as well. It's just a different way of looking at it.
I think that different. Yeah, I think the difference is they're investing in you, so then eventually you pay up for them. When, like you said, that Ajax sells whoever the next superstar, you know, the De Jongs of the world to buy stuff for 80 million, whatever it was.
100%.
While we do it here, it's pay up front. There's no investment in the long term. We just want the money all up front. Then whether you become the next De Jong, who cares?
We're gonna market and promote the fact that we put X amount of players in college and put that on the website, and thereby that's gonna put another quarter, you know, in the merry-go-round, and then we can get the next crop and the next wave, and then it ends. But like, that's great that they went to X university, but is that where they wanted to go, or did they have to settle for that? Because that's not where they wanted to go. Like, I've got 3 kids who play. 17-year-old son who's a rising senior, 14-year-old daughter, and her twin brother. And it's like, obviously they're teenagers, so that's an interesting time with 3 teenagers in the house. But like 3 very, very differing levels of like commitment and focus, etc. Where daughter's goal isn't to go to school around here. No offense to around here in schools, but like she wants to get out. Oldest son, you know, probably wants to get out. So is Club X going to be able to, rather than a local Division II school around Birmingham, are you going to be able to help us get to a Division II school in Oregon or in Wyoming or Florida or wherever, you know? are we able to kind of meet the needs of our players and our families? And I think that's ultimately, you know, what parents, I think, a lot of times get frustrated about, is we feel like our needs aren't being not only met, but not even like heard or even considered or respected.
Because they're not, because your needs are secondary to the club. So the club's needs and U.S. Soccer's needs usually are first. Now, if I speak out on that, well, I'm not a team player.
Correct.
And then now we're going to tell the college coaches that your daughter's not a team player because you're not going to the company picnic, and, you know, you don't want to go to the team bonding event, and
Player
you
for Team College. That's what team you're on. But that's
right.
good. Yeah.
Well, but now, you know, so if I'm questioning what your motives are, and I'll tell coaches flat out, listen, this is what we are. We're here for your team. We want to win. We're going to help you win. And my daughter will say the same thing. Both of them. They're here to win, not here to do anything else. They're going to train hard. But they have to be developed as players first and as versatile players to play the women's college or women's pro game. Mm-hmm. If you just say, well, I'm a center mid and that's it, good luck playing in college, because there's already going to be 3 girls there. Where are you going to get in the field? Can you play left back? Can you play center back? Can you be a number 9 and get a goal at the end of the game? Can you contribute on both sides of the ball? Can you or not? Because then you're not going to play. But is the club doing that? Not really. Not really. So now if I have a problem with that and I'm saying, well, okay, I have to worry about one kid. You got 18 others to worry about. So my interests are going to come first. Then you get off to a whole nother tangent in soccer.
But that's kind of like where we are, because I think the way the system is, it makes it impossible for most kids to really feel any attachment to anybody, because you don't get that type of, if you go to Ajax, you go to Barcelona, whatever, pick a team in Europe. And I'm not saying that every single coach, every single academy is great. God forbid. Of course they're not. I'm sure there are bad coaches at Ajax too. But at least there is a philosophy. This is how we do it here. If you don't like that philosophy, go somewhere else, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But there is a philosophy. There's an idea. There's a plan. There's a program. It's like the first year we're going to do this and move up and move up and move up, and hopefully you'll make the first team. Here, even within a club, that philosophy is different, let alone multiple clubs in town, wherever the town you are. So doesn't that make it almost impossible for you to have any affinity to a place? Because this year you have a great coach, next year they change your coach because that particular club decided that they have to rotate.
Right.
Which I understand, and you see what I mean?
Yeah, but here's the thing also. I should be able to take my kid and bring both of them to Birmingham. And within 5 minutes, if they're good, they should be able to play with anybody. if they've done their job. Without a problem.
Yes.
Now, if you can't do that, what have you been doing? So if my 14-year-old should be able to play soccer with boys, girls, older, younger, at least to a competent level, minusing physicality at some points with older boys or whatever that is. But for the most part, you should be able to do it. That's the mark of a great player or a competent player for us. But if that's always a moving target in your club system and you're only being done through root memory of, well, this is what I've always done, so this is what I'm going to do, then what is the goal that you're preparing for? Who are you preparing for? With an Ajax system or a Dutch system, even with girls, there's a clear identity, top to bottom to top, of where these girls are trying to get to. They can actually see the 17s, they can see the 20s, they can see the 23s, they can see the pros. So there's a linear progression, top to bottom, that they can see. Here, what is it they're trying to see? To make the next team at the next club or college? Which college? Which college though? Pac-12, SEC?
There's a million different styles.
There's a million of them. They all play a different system.
Yep.
So if you don't identify how you're training, when you get to that college, if you're going to go to, say, a school that likes to boot it and scoot it or play it, from the back to the top and bypass midfielders, and you're a midfielder, why are you going there?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not the fastest, strongest number 9 back to the goal defender or striker, you can't put goals in a game and finish. What are you doing? Don't go to that school. But unless there's a knowledge of how you're training, preparing from, I would even say 10 up, it becomes murky as to why you're doing it.
And there's no real one philosophy in the country to begin with, but that doesn't make it easy.
No.
Because everybody does their own thing. But I love my favorites is when people say, I'm building from the back. And then they do all game long is they boot the ball down to the fast guy up, the first fast girl up front. And I always wonder, it's like I'm looking at the coaches and they're like, wait, you kept talking about building from the back, possession. You know what you do is boot the ball. Now, I do believe that, hey, every game is different, and there are some games, it's like, yeah, that may be the best solution. But then what are you doing then? Why are you even preaching building from the back or possession? Everybody's got Guardiola.
Well, we left our boys team. It was, the coach there is a 3-4-3 coach. So from the Clivens. And majority of practice, first hour was a rondo, varying rondos. And then it was how to build out of the back, how we were going to do it, how you were going to lose your mark, how you were going to work for the ball, how the player 2 passes away is already recognizing where space is going to be vacated and moving into. And it was routinely rehearsed and practiced and trained. And then it was trained on with pressure. And then it was trained on with older boys playing down with pressure. And it was all they did 4 days a week, constantly.
And what happened when they got in the game?
It is, well, a couple things happen. When you get into the game, it speeds up your thought process because you've already done it. So now you already know when the keeper already plays that goal kick out to your outside back or to your 5 who's already playing out, okay, that 6 has already been flying into that spot, but we're not playing that fucking 6. Okay? We're playing the 8 behind him. They just don't know it because they're stupid, because they're late on the run anyways.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole new game. It's a whole new game. And the only way teams can beat you or have an impact on that game is to then physicality you. But if you're faster than them with your feet and your head, the game's over. But that's the difference between a coach like that who's willing to do that and players that are willing to do that. And the majority of things I've seen in the girls' game where some girls are just better, technically, tactically, physically, where the game is easier and they're able to operate in a system of chaos better than the most. But what happens most of the time, the keeper plays the ball out to your outside back and they donkey touch it out of bounds. Now we're into a throw-in war. Or the girl happens to get a lucky touch and then kicks it back to the 6 in the middle of the field, who then turns the wrong way because she didn't check. And now she turned it over the top of the box. And now we're into the races. Now you got another goal kick. Meanwhile, your kid's playing the 10, hasn't seen the ball in 20 minutes because we're still playing kickball.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the game.
Sounds familiar.
Right. But it starts in futsal. It really does start, or in street. Because if you don't have technical ability to receive that ball under pressure in a tight space and touch it away from pressure and play quickly, then how are you going to do it on a big field? But no one wants to play futsal.
No.
Not really.
Too much futsal. That's what people around here say. Players have too much futsal in them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Not enough.
Oh. That's when I'm like, well, the Brazilians are pretty good last time I checked. And that's all they play until they're 12 or 14.
Right.
That's it. Like, there is no outdoor.
Well, no, I grew up playing in the street.
That's futsal. It's in the street. Yep, that's it.
I played in the street. I never cared if I had cleats. I didn't care what we were kicking, whatever the size of the ball, we just played. Whether it was a tennis ball or it was a soccer ball, we did not care.
You can't get kids. You can't get them. Like this time last year in LA, I had the pictures of it. We got like a freak rainstorm. It was like a period of weeks where things were just closed. Like they just weren't training. There was no games. And we couldn't even play street down in Venice because it was just too wet and too dangerous. And so I'm like, you know what? I called my boy up. He's got an indoor futsal facility. I said, can I just have it for like 4 hours in the morning? I couldn't I paid for it, flat out. I'll admit it, right? Hooked them up. We had a radio. We had music. I called up some coaches that we know to come play. Couldn't get girls to come out. Couldn't get them. Couldn't get them.
Why?
Who's coming? Are they national team caliber? We only want to play with these girls. No one's going to video it, right? Well, I can't do it because, you know, we're taking my coach wants to play futsal, wants to rest. So you get, you know, we got a mixture. We got mostly adults. We got 3 pro players, girls, who wanted to train, and we got maybe 6 other girls who just wanted to play. So it worked out, but you just can't do it. Can't do it.
It's so true. One time I refused to build the nets during practice. I just told them, you know what? We're just going to use bags or sweaters as adults. Who cares? I mean, I just wanted them to kind of not think of the goal of hitting, you know, the net part. Just like it was when I was growing up. We didn't care if it was a wall, if it was whatever. Just use whatever was there.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes I feel like the kids need to go back to kind of strip all these extra crap. And the kids couldn't play. They're like, no, coach, we can't play like this.
Yeah.
Like, coach, no, we need to build the net. Like, you know, we're not. It took me 10 minutes until they finally started playing. And then once they started to play, it's like it never existed. They just kept playing. But for those first few minutes, it was just like, it was like I don't know, it's like I killed their dog or something. They were in complete, like, what do you mean no goal? What do you mean no goal?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. If you can't pass the ball, then shoot the ball. It doesn't matter where you're shooting at. So
we saw the same thing when we started our futsal program. It's been on a little brief hiatus, you know, obviously with all the changes. About a year and a half ago, we started our year-round program where basically this is 2 days a week where players come in on Friday, Sunday as a supplement to what they're getting. Maybe they're training Monday, Tuesday, Thursday with their team. They have a game on Saturday. And we have like academy teams where we grew from 3 to 5 to 7. But as players would come in, you know, this day would be team training. This day would be pickup. And like pickup to them, like they literally had zero clue, like what the hell to do. Like they came in, it's like, I'm here for pickup. I'm like, I know, but I'm working with this team. Like, no offense. Like there's the pennies, there's the ball. I told you 2 days ago what it was going to be. Like there's 8 players, 4 and 4, maybe even game. Like I counted, it took 12 minutes for the first game to get started. And it's like, they're just there. Oh, well, who's going to be on this team? Oh, well, what color this and this? It's like, none of that matters, man. Y'all just wasted 12 minutes of playtime that you're never going to get back. And like you say that playing's fun. Well, obviously it's not that fun because y'all are just saying they're talking to each other.
But that is part of the problem. We are, because everything has to be so structured these days. That we have taken away the developmental part of where the kids just figure stuff out on their own. Where
from school to organized practice, they go from piano recital listening to the teacher, then they go to dance, and they go to soccer, then they go to this, and everything is super structured. Teachers tell them what to do. They're great rule followers, but like problem solvers are few and far between these days, for sure.
And we're shocked when they can't figure it out because, I mean, I've seen my daughter's team, the goalie, because the coach was yucking so much. And at one point, the girl picked up the ball, looked at the coach, screamed at him, and said, "What do you want me to do now?" and it was hilarious, but at the same time, it was like disturbing. Because you're yelling so much, you're giving so much information that they can't even. It's just so much noise in their head. It's just that the girl just wanted to shut up. Because we don't coach that anymore. Everything is kind of like if we were in a football team, on American football, you know, like run this play. You know, quarterback passes to this, does, you know, receiver makes this run, and it's soccer, you can't do that.
No.
The difference between, I'll speak into what I know. The difference that I saw between the boys' game and the girls' game, it wasn't even the same game. You couldn't even call it soccer. It was, I'm not being like, I know someone's going to hear this and be like, oh, this guy's an ass. But no, it's not even the same game between the boys and the girls. It really isn't. It's just and maybe it shouldn't be, I don't know, but how coaches talk, when they choose to talk, their tenor of their voice, it carries so much more weight when a coach says nothing for 35 minutes and then all of a sudden fires off the bench and barks like 2 words. It's everyone snaps to it because it's the same words they've been hearing in practice. It's not instruction. It's just a little thing that just all of a sudden changes the whole dynamic. And I have never seen that. I've seen it very rarely on the girls' side. I have seen it at some very, very, very special places. I've seen it. But for the masses, it's either complete silence and you're left to maybe they care or maybe they don't, or it's constant joysticking. It's constant PlayStation.
So are you saying, just to be clear, because are you saying that in the girls' side, there's more joysticking than in the boys' side? That's what you've seen?
Yeah, what I've seen.
What about you, Tristan? Have you noticed that?
I mean, I would say it's probably a coach by coach.
Could be.
I mean, especially around here. Like, I'm trying to think, and similar to Joe, like my daughter played. She played on the boys team for the last year and a half as well, where we were part of. You know, there's a local quote high level club, and the culture. She just wasn't. Honestly, like the girls were. I saw it like on the group chat talking about like what makeup and what Kendra Scott $2,000 necklace they were going to wear to training, and it's like. She doesn't have any of that. She wants to get there an hour early so that she can get warmed up and work on her left foot and strike the ball and go, and like they're worried about like MAC makeup and all that, like, and they're 11, you know? So, I mean, I think it's more of just a cultural issue where here it's more, I think, coach specific.
Okay.
But, I mean, I know there's some, and even I'm trying to think, because I know there's a lot of coaches here that coach both, where we've been pretty lucky, you know, with the majority of the coaches that my kids have had, for the most part. Like there's been 1 or 2, you know, that haven't been great, but there's been several that have been good and taken good care of them. But I think it's more of a coach by coach basis here where we are in terms of that.
I would say that from what I've seen, because I coach both too, I think the thing that got me the most is the lack of interest, and depends on the culture too of who comes to play. But I've noticed that the boys is a lot more passion, if you will. Like, you know, many people show up to practice even. But for the girls, there's a lot of dumping the kid there and taking off and then show up when you need to be picked up. I notice a lot of that, the difference between boys and girls. Also, the thing that drives me the most crazy about it is for boys, I see a lot of, even though there's the usual, you know, whatever, yelling and screaming, which is completely ineffective. But if a boy tries something, tries a move, like, you know, wants to imitate Ronaldinho or something, or Messi or whatever, which is what you're supposed to do, especially in practice. Well, I think you should do that in the game too, but different conversation for later. Even though the coach may get mad, they don't tell them to stop doing it. What I've seen for girls is that they do tell them to not do that. It's almost like girls are not pushed to the same standard than boys. It's like, well, why can't a girl try a Messi move or Carly Lloyd move or whomever move? Doesn't matter who, pick one. But that's my biggest difference I've noticed. It's like girls are told just pass the ball, make a run, cross, header, whatever. Very boom, boom, boom. While boys, if they're more creative, that's totally fine.
Well, that's also how boys are, right? It's in their DNA. Whereas it's not, some girls have it, some girls don't. Some boys have it, some boys don't. But the majority of boys, you know, are if they're at a competitive soccer team and you're in a training session, they're going to go at you. Like it's going to be, you know, I'm knocking you off the ball and I'm taking your ball because I want your ball. That's my ball. and boys will slide, they will tackle, they will go into you. Some girls will, some girls won't. But in that, you're right. They're more apt to try something because they don't see it as risky. They don't see it as, if they lose it, they're just going to get it back, or they're going to try to get it back, or, oh, well, I don't care. But the girls, a lot of them want to please, and they want to make the right decision, and they don't want to be wrong more than they value sometimes playing it safe and not being wrong than being right, or trying something. And maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. But that's where the special thing change happens. When you can have that specialness to risk it all for that thing. And that's what youth soccer or sports should be. It should be, like I was a 6'4" white, 3-guard playing AAU bad basketball, and I tried until forever to dunk. Now I just couldn't until 9th grade, but then I did, but I was sure as heck trying 7th and 8th grade, So I think girls should be encouraged more at a younger age. I think they are at a younger age, but then somewhere like around, I think 10 to 13, it becomes that fear of, if I do it and mess up, I'm going on the bench and not playing, and I'm done. And I think that affects too much of the girl side.
Yep. Girls are pleasers. They want their teammates to like them. So Susie's going to like me if I pass her the ball. Well, what if Susie's not as good as you? And now we lose the game because we're passing the ball to players and involving other players. When I say this to my kids and kids that we coach, where like the Last Dance, a new documentary that's coming on. Obviously the Bulls, everybody knows what, the greatness that Jordan had, and
right.
The role players of what the other players are. He was a role player. The role player for Michael Jordan is, if you're on the court and you're not the best player on the court, the Bulls lose, because that's your role. The role of Lionel Messi is when he's at Argentina, he's a different player. Well, if you're not the best player on the field, then you're going to lose. There's no snub. There's no negative or pejorative, term of being a role player. It just might be like, if you're literally the best player and you're that person, then you're going to have to take more risks. And if you lose the ball, you lose the ball. And then what are you going to do to help your team kind of work through that?
Yeah.
We all should be messy. That's the moral of the story.
They're all messy, either with an I or a Y, I say. Just up to you. Which one are you going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, repeat that? I like that.
But all players are messy. You can either be messy with an I or a Y. Which one are you going to be?
I'm going to steal that one now.
The kids like the kids get a kick out of that. I'm like, yeah, you're messy. I'm not sure which one right now, but you're messy. And they kind of laugh.
Oh, yes. It's these days, especially with the kids being at home, there's been a lot of messy, but not the good one. But,
I'm sure.
Sure.
It's oof. Now, so while all of this is happening, are your kids, doing like 50 million different programs online, or you kind of let them chillax?
For mine, it's a different situation where their mother and I are not together. So like one house has kind of different standard schedules, times, and stuff like that. Where when they were with me, they were with us for, I want to say, like almost the first month or so. Where for our futsal people, we have Zoom at 11 a.m. Central Time, which is the time zone we're in. So they had that kind of like built into their schedule. And then in the afternoons, you would get out, we may go to a field, we may go to the trail, we may go here, we may go there. But like within those parameters, they can kind of choose and kind of flow to what they want to do. And again, even with my 3 daughter, like super structured, rigid, organized, where like they were just down here in the garage doing a virtual training with some other coach that she had found online. And then she was going online at 6 o'clock our time with Beast Mode, because she's doing a 30-day accountability program, and she's got this book and these flow charts. It's like the most organized thing ever. She doesn't make it a soccer player. She might be at NASA and like building rocket ships. Who knows? But that's just, that's the way that her mind works. I was never that way. Her twin brother's not that way. Her older brother kind of heads or tails, depending on the day. Sometimes is that way. So I kind of leave it up to them. But they have the advantage or disadvantage, kind of depending on what lens you're looking at it through, and kind of if they're having a good day or not, of having some of the things kind of baked into their schedule when they're here, because that's kind of what we do for a living. So,
yeah.
What about yours, John?
We're a little lucky that my oldest has been going to online school since, she was 8, 9. So, and we usually kind of took off the spring anyways from, like last year we took off spring, we left DA and went to Europe. So like we were gone for 3 months, basically.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. Well, total time we were gone, we went to Europe, then came back to the East Coast and did the whole thing. So she's kind of used to like setting her own schedule and having school not be in a traditional classroom. So, like I said, she'll wake up in the morning early. She'll do her weights and her fitness, get that out of the way because Hawaii is hot, and then do school. And then she'll do a mixture of like footwork and wall ball out in the driveway. And then she'll finish out with a couple hours, usually in the backyard and grass on cleats. And that's just kind of what she does. And she'll vary it according to how she wants it, what she wants to do. But she's pretty much has her own thing dialed in, and we just videotape her, basically.
Just post it on Instagram and so everybody can see.
Well, I'll video it, or she will, and then she'll decide, or her sister sometimes will do it. And that's kind of their thing now. So it's good that one sister can kind of help, shag balls and video, and the other one can, do her thing. Then they'll switch.
that's cool.
Yes, mine are a little bit younger, so they kind of depends on the week, on what they do and what they don't do. Some weeks it's like, oh, let's do. And some days it's like, oh, I have to play my video game, or I have to jump on the trampoline, or whatever it is. Because mine are only 9 and 10.
I remember those days. Fun times.
I remember that.
I'm in the no, it's great. I mean, I love it, but it is intense.
Yeah.
It's intense because they're very active, so they kind of miss the going to, because my son, both of them actually do tracks. They miss doing that. They miss going to practices. They miss playing games. They both play soccer. They both do tracks. By their choice, which is great because they like to dance, but they're missing all of that. It's been a little difficult for them.
Yeah.
It's and I don't want to push it too much, but then at the same time, it's kind of like, maybe they should be doing something. So it's kind of like, how much do we do?
Well, that's the thing that I've been thinking about is no one knows when this nightmare kind of stops or how it changes. And so from a training perspective, it can't just be full throttle training and running and doing all this stuff. It's what are you doing it for and how long does it last? And kind of playing with that. Okay, I need to stay relatively fit, improve on some weaknesses in the strength, but like we also have to have fun and but how do you frame that with, 2 girls who are 3 years apart? And that's where we're struggling right now, kind of as parents, probably like most.
Yeah, it's tough for sure.
It's hard to be a parent these days, isn't it? Because you always feel like you're missing something, or other people. You see other people. Oh my God, I can't believe my kids are not doing this. Am I a bad parent because they're not doing X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably part of the problem. Like I'm pretty. Like if you really want to get me upset on Twitter, it's when
let me take notes. Hold on. Go ahead.
Here's my match to gasoline. It's when people just hammer parents. Oh, the car ride home. That's why girls quit soccer. Or if this dad, would just whatever. It's the parents' fault. It's the parents are the reason why referees are quitting. The parents are why coaches are bad. And so that are parents bad? Sure. Soccer parents are the worst. Of course they are, but it's not. That's in that vacuum that really gets me, because no one is perfect in coming out of youth soccer especially, unscathed at all. So that's what really gets me, you know, is that blanket parents are the enemy. Because which one is it? So like Tom Byer is all about, okay, soccer starts at home.
Yep.
Parents got to be accountable. Messi's dad was taking him from when he was this big and giving him hormone injections, and they were playing with a rock out in the street. And look how great he turned out. But, okay, if I'm playing street soccer with my daughter, I'm a pariah. Okay, well, which one is it? Which one do you want? Can't be both.
Yep.
You know?
Well, and I agree with a lot of what Tom says, and that's kind of the problem, because we're telling parents, be with your kids, play with your kids, be partake in their activities, you know, share, you know, be, you know, what. But then at the same time, like you said, then you shun them for you're too involved, you're too much doing too much.
Right.
I
Right.
think
You're too invested.
You're too invested.
The issues creep in when judgment starts to kind of be there.
Yep.
You know, like I'm a big Gary Vee guy. Like I love that dude. I've had the privilege to like meet him on a couple of occasions. Like he gives advice on a lot of things. He doesn't give advice on parenting to anyone, because it's like we don't know
Right.
the situation. You know,
Right.
where I'm seen as like I know I've been seen as a crazy soccer parent, which I probably am. And on some days you'll ask my kids and it's like, yeah, he pushes too much. On other days, it's like he pushes too little. It's like Goldilocks. You're not going to get it just right all the time. It's
Right.
a matter of like, if you're trying to do what's best for your kids, and this will probably be controversial, but I don't necessarily believe that like burnout really exists.
No.
I think that's a way where, in essence, burnout in the terms of like youth sports, a kid has kind of been pushed, encouraged, and kind of forced to do something that he or she didn't really want to do anyway. So like, to me, like if they burn out at the age of 11 versus 14, like that's better, because now we have 3 or 4 years of knowing of like, okay, you didn't like that. Like I just had to talk with my kids today. It's like, my oldest is going through recruiting. So he's had a couple of calls with coaches. It's like, hey, every call, take every one. You know, even if you think you might not want to go there, because turns out you might want to go. Or what's also good is you might find out that now you don't want to go to that level or that, you know, size of school or to that conference or to that part of the country. But it's a lot of times better to know like what you don't want to do than kind of find out what you do want to do. And for kids, they can start to navigate their own process of, I hate this, and this, but I really like this. Like ice cream. Kids don't get burned out on ice cream. They need a different flavor. Kids ain't going to say, oh, I'm burned out on ice cream. They're just going to stop eating strawberry and eat mint chocolate chip or eat Oreo or eat cookie dough or whatever. But if you let them do it every day, I guarantee, unless they're lactose intolerant or allergic, like mine are sometimes, that they're going to choose to eat ice cream every day. They'll just have to find a different flavor.
Yeah, I know that's my problem. I mean, if I eat ice cream every day, I have them on the COVID. The COVID.
Calories don't count in quarantine, man. Calories don't count in quarantine. That's the rule.
But I think you said something very important, that we're doing the very best we can, and we're not going to get it right every time. I mean, I don't think we ever going to get it right.
No.
I don't think there is such a thing as getting it right. I think it's just every day, because I know we are always thinking, okay, are we pushing too much, or you know, is this the right place? Should we move somewhere else? How much is too much? There's always this constant question that we're asking ourselves, and it's just like. But I think that's the one thing that pisses me off on Twitter, when everybody else is trying to make me feel bad. And so it's like, and then you step back from it and you go, wait a second, but I see my kid who's always with the ball, or I see my daughter who's always jumping and dancing or whatever she wants to do, whatever the flavor of the day is, kind of like whatever the ice cream they want to get that day, right? And then I'm like, well, they're smiling, they're happy, they're doing it without me saying much of anything. So maybe I'm not wrong. You see, it's like this constant struggle.
Or better yet, like I saw myself as a 6, 7, 12-year-old, and my dad was a coach. So like, this is kind of the way that I was raised. So like, I'm sorry that you were an accountant, Johnny, and your dad, you know, was a librarian or whatever, but like you weren't raised the way that I was raised. So why would we have the same level of understanding in terms of how we're going to kind of push and challenge our kids to certain goals?
Yeah.
Which is
And
always
there's nothing wrong with it.
No. Well, that's what I was going to say. It's like, If kids want to read more, if they want to play the violin more, awesome, awesome, awesome. If their parents force them to do that. But if parents like force and push them into sports, that's bad. That makes no sense to me.
No,
honestly.
forcing kids is bad to begin with. I do believe that. I like your take on burnout. I think it could just be the how we express it. But no, I think that people who push their kid to be musicians or this or that is no different than playing volleyball, soccer, or tennis. It's the same, exact same behavior. I mean, I know when my daughter she did, what was it, a year or two ago, she did gymnastics for like once a week. She just wanted to do it just for fun. And I remember, it was one of those classes you do like 45 minutes or something like that. And it was just tumbling, just an introduction. And I remember parents were like, you don't have the proper outfit? What? She was like, what, 7? Something like that. It's like, we're not going to the Olympics. She's not that interested. It's not like one of those. She just wanted to take a tumbling class. And she hated it because of that, because everybody was like in these perfect little outfits with the perfect little hair. And it's like, and she just wanted to go and jump around. That's ridiculous. But I see that on the soccer fields too, where people are like, oh, they're not wearing the new Messi shoes. Like, what? It's a shoe, it's a cleat on a 10-year-old. I mean, you're going to change that cleat 3 months from now. I'm not spending $150 on a pair of cleats.
I haven't done that yet. Yeah, we don't buy that $300 cleats up in here. No way. We go from this to this.
But you're covering that wide. It's such a wide spectrum on a field. I mean, in Los Angeles especially on the West, even in the West Coast, it's insane what you'll get on a team. Yeah. And if you go to a high level team, we'll call DA high level for sake of conversation, or ECNL or something like that. But the range on that is huge. And so my thing also was with a coach. I've never said it, but it's also implied, is if you're benefiting from my player or a player who's just come to your team and is walking on, basically starting and contributing to your team like that, you haven't developed her. That was developed probably by her, the player, working hard, and probably 1 or 2 parents, because they have a clue in their head and they understand sports. So you're benefiting from that. But you can't turn those parents or want those parents to assimilate to be like the other parents who are, a stockbroker and a business guy who's rolling up to the field with his nice shoes, driving his BMW. I drive a nice car too. I'm not about the car. Don't hate me on that. But just the image of that parent rolling up who watched the last 5 minutes of practice and wants Becky to start. Like, you can't expect or want me to be just like him and just be the cool, just like I'm going to fade into the shadows, be the wallflower. That's not going to happen. But when you want that across the whole thing of the team, and then you add on the crazy of, well, now everyone needs to be in the brand new Copas, or, oh, okay, we're an Adidas team, so don't even try rolling up in a pair of Under Armours because we're an Adidas team. Well, no, come on. And so you add that level of crazy on top of it, it just creates this tornado of nuttiness.
Yeah, and who cares at 8 years old, 10 years old, what kind of cleats they have? Who gives a crap?
Well, kids do. They want, because but the thing, it's the whole environment of it that's changed. When I was playing basketball, I mean, maybe Tristan's the same. All I wanted more than anything was a pair of Jordan 3s. I think they were. That was it.
Oh, yeah, the cement, the black ones and the white.
Yeah, the cement ones. That was it. And then I got them, I think, for Christmas, and they gave me blisters, and I couldn't wear them, so I had to go back to my bad ones. But that was the only shoe that was really out. Now they'll come out with a new colorway of a boot, and the kid just wants the same cleat, but different color.
Well, we all understand. Look, we all wanted a certain ball. We all wanted a certain cleat. And I get that the kids want that too. But I think as parents, we also, in the environment, is so money-driven that it's making those decisions for you. I mean, I don't see anything wrong if you if my kid wants the new Messi's or the new Ronaldo's or whatever, and you get it for them, and it's like Christmas, and they're so happy you get a new cleat, and that's wonderful. But the pressure of to me, there's a difference in parent buying something to make their kids happy versus I have to buy this if not my kid is considered crap.
Or I have to buy it because my team, club, or league is mandating it.
Exactly.
And not only do I have to buy the boot on the turf, I need to buy a turf cleat because we're practicing on turf at night, and the club doesn't want us to wear studs. And now we also need the matching or the same brand for futsal shoes, because one time a month we're going to play indoor futsal and you can't wear regular shoes because, God forbid, you try to do that. That'd be crazy.
Man.
And we need cross trainers.
Kids wearing running shoes.
And we need cross trainers too for our fitness days, ladies.
Yeah, they end up having more shoes than I have. And I only have, I refuse to have two pairs for me, so let alone for the kids. But yes, but that's where it's at. It's like, you practice on turf, so you have to have turf, and you play on grass, you have to have grass. Because God forbid we play with the same one. Even though technically you could. But yeah, it is, that's the stuff that drives me crazy. Not that a kid wants something. Of course, we all wanted something when we were growing up. You wanted Jordans, I wanted the fancy ball or whatever whatever was cool at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody forced me to. Nobody forced my parents to. It was just one of those, hey, okay, I'll give something to my kid. It's a completely different mentality there.
I mean, enforced might be the wrong word. It might be implied, whether it's applied through peer pressure to the girls or it's applied through peer pressure of the parents to stay the same social status because everyone wants to be friends and we're all traveling together to the game. And so, the parents want to get matching shirts with, the mom want to bedazzle the logo on the shirt. It's been the whole thing. It happens. Sometimes it's great and it's fine. But other times, like we've been in for some teams where there was a girl one time Bella was playing with was just a baller. And the whole practice I didn't even notice. Her shoes weren't even tied. Like the laces were broken and she just did her thing and that was just it. But that's the mark of it, right? Can you just play in anything, anywhere, anytime with anything and not think about it and just do people dirty? That's the mark of a player, I think. When you can cut through all that BS and just focus on just the game and just what you have to do. But so much of this other stuff we're talking about now is just noise. It's just noise. And there's so much of it now and it's so amplified now because of social media, and the girls have it. Boys have it, parents have it. The Cubs say they're not on it, but they are. And it's all noise. And it just creates just an environment where it's just so hard to get to the actual sport.
But it takes the focus. Like I know we've talked about DA, like you and Joe and I have had this conversation on Twitter. Like we focus on the cleats, we focus on the kit, we focus on the league, but like we don't focus on the kid or the coach. Like what is that relationship? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And is that what's best for that individual player, or is that player going to be better served somewhere else, which is fine?
Probably. And the dirty secret that no one really talks about, what also gets me upset on Twitter, is the Twitter coaches who, I'm an ex-DA director or, whatever. Okay, you're not now. Spare me. I don't need the education. Don't educate me soccer-wise. Like, stop it. But there's different rules for different players. Everyone knows this. But the top less than 1% are not playing with the same cards that everybody else is. Just not. And I'm not saying we're part of that. We're close to that, but we're not that. So those girls have the luxury of not having to deal with a lot of this noise because they are either shielded from it or don't have been given the ability or earned the ability probably to not have to deal with it. And so it also creates statuses on especially a DA team or an ECNL team, mm-hmm. which also creates more attention.
Basically, being a parent is hard. Being a parent of an athlete is hard.
Depends on their aspirations.
It does.
That the further they want to go, I would say the more challenging it can be, because it's like, so the DA's gone. The DA was never in. We had boys DA in Birmingham years ago. Like when the boys DA started, it was in Birmingham.
Okay.
And it was here for, I want to say, maybe the first 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And this is a funny story. I won't name names. But
Joe, no.
I mean,
we had a director. We had a new director come in, very well esteemed. I actually like signed on to work for him. Like I had a training facility at the time. I went to hear his informational meeting. I'd heard 10 of them. It's like, whatever, how good can they be? I just want to meet him. And I'm like, left at the end, introduced myself. I went back to our training facility, sent my staff, hey, I'll run every session the rest of the night, all these groups. Y'all need to go hear what this guy has to say. Like he was legit. He lasted 18 months because basically he kind of wanted to do it like his way, like the soccer way. His thing was, the phrase was, whatever made soccer sense, he would do. It ruffled some feathers in the lovely metropolis of Birmingham, to say the least. Pissed some coaches off, where coaches at his club left, joined the other side, brought players and teams over there, and then boys DA was then taken away because you don't have the numbers to to support it. Well, a couple of years ago, one of the coaches was talking about, yeah, like we don't have boys DA. I was like, whoa. You're the reason we don't have boys DA, man. Well, no, man, because I'm like, no, I was in the meeting. Like you guys got your feelings hurt and y'all left and you took players, and that's why boys DA left. Because the guy told you that he didn't think you were a good coach. And whether he was right or wrong, but like you're literally the reason why boys DA left. You can't sit here and complain about it, So we had DA here. We never had girls DA. The closest was Atlanta, which we actually considered for my daughter. Tried out there, and just logistics of like driving. It's only 2 hours, but in terms of what that was going to be at that time, I don't think would have worked. But we have several girls who over the last few years have been doing that, have been driving. It's a matter of like, I've got a girl that I work with who signed full ride Division I Power 5 school, going to go in and start as a freshman, et cetera, et cetera. And like, that's kind of what they had to do. If they wouldn't have done it, like, would she have gotten that same offer? Like, probably not, because again, I don't think that necessarily she would have been a much different player. I'm sure the culture where she was training was very good. Sure. She was surrounded by like-minded players, but the brand of having a logo from certain club on your shirt versus another club, you can be the same player, but it just doesn't look the same and feel the same to college coaches, which I get. Because again, I coach in college. Like we would take a risk on a kid from this school versus that school because we knew the coach and had players from there and had built a relationship. So you kind of knew what you were going to get. And at the end of the day, like if we don't win, we get fired. So we don't want to be on an island and recruiting some kid that's in a small market that's maybe a good player, but I've only seen him a couple of times. And coach such and such from this club who I know endorses this player. So that's kind of what parents have had to do, So if your kid wants to get to that level, I've been to the brink of craziness, working out the logistics of, can we work that drive out, 2 to 3 days a week, which my daughter still wonders why we're not doing that. But
I passed crazy then a long time ago.
I already know.
I'm so far past crazy.
Your podcast, we heard your 343 podcast when we were on the road to Atlanta for one of like the camps or things that we were going over to. And I played it because I knew your story, to make sure that Aren's my daughter's name, to make sure that she didn't feel, like she was crazy or she was weird. Because you're
right.
Not.
You're not.
It's like you're around here and it's like, well, nobody else wants to do this. I'm like, well, nobody else wanted to be Mia Hamm either, Not to say that your daughter or my daughter will become that, but I know if you don't try to get that and reach that, I guarantee you won't become that. That's for sure.
And that is also part of the way the system is here, that there's a lot of lack of interest by some parents to do stuff like that. I remember I spoke to, about a year and a half ago, I spoke to a father whose son was picked by the Masia in Barcelona. 14 years old, 15 years old. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly. But I mean, that's huge.
Bye.
That's what I would have said. I was like, I'll swim to Spain if I have to, right? And I was talking to the father, and he was like, yeah, you know, it's exciting. I'm like, exciting? I mean, this is fantastic. Congratulations. I mean, this is amazing. And I asked him, so are you guys moving to Spain? Because if that happens to me, we're going. I don't care what I have to do. We'll figure it out. But you don't piss on this chance. I mean, this doesn't come around the second time. To be one of the best clubs on the planet, sure, you're going. And he told me, no, he's only going to stay there for a year. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? I mean, how do you know? I mean, is this like just a year thing? It's like, no, this is supposed to be, he was taken and he can stay as long as he stays. I was like, okay, so why are you only going to stay there for a year? I asked. And he said, well, mom doesn't want him to stay there for more than a year because he needs to go to college.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wait, you're a soccer player. You get picked by Barcelona to play. That doesn't mean you're going to play in the first team, but still, much closer chance than most people. And then you're going to bring him back to go to college. You can go to college at 22. What's the difference? You don't get to be a Barcelona again if you leave. I mean, they don't come back around. But that was the mentality. So many times, the people I've been talking to while preparing this film is that one. Nope, we have to do this. We have to do this. We have to do this. Kind of like, you know, what happens to your daughter, or to your daughter, you're going back and forth to Hawaii and LA, or what happened to Griezmann in, you know, that his father drove him 2.5, 3 hours every day to work, to play in Spain because nobody in France wanted him at 15 years old. And then we all know the story. 6, 7 years later, he's World Cup champ. Now, not all of our kids are going to be Griezmann. I mean, may they all be, and I wish all of them to be, but we do have to have, at one point, you have to make that decision where, how crazy are we going to go? And that's hard for parents.
It is. And the only way I sleep at night pretty well is pretty early on. I figured out that you can't work yourself. You can't work backwards. As a parent, it gets really hard if you're always trying to say, well, it's the national team or Stanford or we failed. Like, it can't be that. It has to be the day work. It has to be just being a good soccer player. Like, that has to be it. And if the byproduct of that work is those things that you wanted, then great. But that can't be the only thing of success. So, like, we shouldn't have to actually move from Hawaii to LA or drive to Atlanta. Is it 2 hours each way? Even if it's 2 hours one way, I don't know, whatever, total, doesn't matter. It's still crazy. You shouldn't have to, but we have to, because the situation that was created by the people that create soccer. I don't create soccer. I just have to live in that world. Neither do any of us. People that are creating it created DA for showcases because college coaches are lazy. They probably won't like me saying it. But if I was a college coach, I wouldn't want to go to every game. I'd rather go to a showcase, stay at a nice hotel, get dinner, and go see 80 girls in one day. It's the easiest recruiting ever. But you're missing out maybe on the girl who's not there, who is just as good and can contribute. There's a reason why only maybe what we think 8 to 12 programs can win a national championship every year in girls soccer. And it's the same ones. Hasn't really changed. 1 or 2 maybe up or down. Hasn't changed because they're getting the top of the top. But there's enough talent in the world now, not just America, in the world, for top 25, top 50, top 75 programs to do better. They're not, because they're all trying to go to the DA showcase or the ECNL Phoenix showcase to recruit the same girls who play the same way.
Yep.
Well, but then you see,
and therefore we have to do that. We have to assimilate to that system, or our girls, and I know this for a fact, probably like you guys do as well. If you're playing boys soccer, you might as well be playing on freaking Mars, because ain't no one coming to your game and no one scouting it. Even though Jill Ellis, I saw Jill Ellis' interview at the World Cup when Spain almost did him. I think it was Spain.
Yep.
And we got to get more girls playing boys soccer. And I'm like, all right, sounds good. Let's do it.
Sign me up. Already did.
And it wasn't easy. I got told no We went to boys DA, boys ECNL, did fine. Couldn't get a coach. Finally found one that gave a legit chance. But it's crickets, man. Crickets.
Yep.
So you have to assimilate to the systems, and we have to drive now, and we have to do those things. And you got to pay the money. You got to get into the system. And that's the problem, is that we're chasing this mythical thing at the end of this rainbow that might or might not be there. And you might not get there based upon soccer ability. It might just be because no one just saw you. You could still be really good. It just didn't work out, man. And that's not happening in baseball. It's not happening in football.
Nope.
Clemson is not missing out. Alabama is not missing out on the big running back. Maybe he's not getting the stars, but those coaches' jobs depend on finding that kid. And in girls soccer and women's soccer, it ain't happening, man.
But it's not happening in the boys' side either.
Probably not. No, it's not. To be fair,
Because the coaches are not scouting, or the scouts are not scouting. There's too many. Like I can see, and like I was talking to a gentleman from AC Milan in Italy, the youth system, the academy, and I was talking to a coach, and I was talking to a couple of the people in the system. Luckily, and being Italian myself, I could speak to them in Italian, but they were telling me, we will look for anyone. We don't care where you're from, who you are, what you are. We don't care if you have 3 heads. Yeah. If you can kick, shoot, stop the ball, you're playing for us. I mean, hopefully, or maybe they go to another team. But you will be found.
Yeah.
That does not happen here. People do not scout. So then you will not see so many players. Now, granted, the U.S. is a pretty big country, geographically speaking, so of course it's a hell of a lot more complicated than the European country, which much, much smaller in comparison. But I still believe that we can do more scouting here if we just get organized. Because there's no reason for scouts to only look at 1 or 2 places and ignore the rest.
Well, this is a collaboration versus like a competition where you have ECNL, you have DA, you have state association, you have ODP, you have like within our market, again, Birmingham, we're over 1 million. And there's like, this is like a Shark Tank of like player from this club getting called from that club. And well, they can go here. We're going to put you at this level. You're going to do this, or, well, we have ODP. We're going to play in this league. I mean, it's probably more complicated than in a smaller European country, but we only have 50 states though. Why wouldn't we just have like a state director of talent identification? And in Alabama, you only need 1. In California, you may need a NorCal and SoCal, or maybe 2 or 3. And like your responsibility is that you know every single player. But now, if somebody that's in the club system, it's easy. If it's somebody that you got to go to the barrios of frickin' South Central or wherever you got to go, now that's your job, is to find.
But you just described what teams like Milan, Juventus, etc., they all do. Like when I was talking to them, they were telling me, we have this either a team affiliated to us that may not be us, but it's affiliated to us, or a school / camp, however you want to look at it.
Sure.
In every region of the country. So then if there is a player that is worth us taking to the home base back in Milan or Turin or wherever, we do it. But then we don't make those kids leave home too early. We leave them there. They're supervised by us in every single region. Now, again, I understand. Sheer size of it is different, but the concept is the same. So instead of having 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, you may have 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. What's the difference? It's the same concept. We should have them, but I think it goes back also to the same problem that we talked at the beginning. Promotion and relegation. There's no such thing as every club has no real interest, which to me is also part of the reason why when you hear an Ibrahimovic speaking and so many Americans get upset, which I thought that's exactly right. When you play for first place and first place only, You're fighting. You're giving everything you've got. You're going 100 miles an hour, maybe 102 miles an hour, and then one team wins, right?
Yep.
When you are fighting for playoffs, your competition level goes down. Because all of a sudden you can be sixth best. That's no big deal. I can be in the playoffs. Who cares? But what happens then when you transfer that mentality to the World Cup? When you transfer that mentality to the Gold Cup, now all of a sudden they can't lift up because everybody else is competing for one. You're competing for top 10, top 6, top 8, whatever it is. You can't all of a sudden switch your brain and, okay, now I'm going to compete over here. You cannot do that. There's no such thing. You either win the Champions League or you lose the Champions League. There is no in between. There's no top 10, top final 4 crap, right? You either win it or you don't. You don't win the you either win the Bundesliga or you don't.
Right.
That's it. But here, the MLS, which unfortunately is it's the same for the NBA. I mean, they're all the same. But soccer being a world sport, if the players are not used to competing at that level, when they transfer over, they cannot compete unless they go there very, very young, like a Pulisic, and even he is struggling because even he does not have that type of mentality because he's not used to it. And he is struggling. Even though he's doing pretty decent at Chelsea, he's not a 73 million euro player.
Huh.
Because he never was taught to, because by 15, you're still, and he's doing pretty darn good, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against the kid. But I think overall you have, and Ibrahimovic talked about it all the time, he's like, I'm fighting on every ball. And some of these kids are like, because there's no fear of being relegated. So whether you finish in last place or first place, there's really no difference. And that makes it huge. And also there's no, for all of these clubs from below, they're not going anywhere. So there is no, once you move up, club A, club B, club C, whatever it is, you're 14, 15, 16, there's nowhere to go, right? Unless you're in an MLS club and even then it's questionable how they do it.
Well, like we're in a quarantine right now, so let's rip this conversation up a little bit. So pro rel, it all starts there, right? But especially on the boys' side and the girls' side, of course. But I believe it's never going to happen.
Well, never.
And because the horse is already out of the barn, and he's probably dead. So you're never going to get it. It's already started and finished. It's done. Never going to get it. For the girls' side specifically, the metric of success that has been brainwashed into U.S. soccer, top down, is the only measure of success is national team. Whereas for the boys, in everywhere else in the country, even here, it's I want to be a pro. Here, for girls, it's national team. I want to be like Alex Morgan or Kristen Press, or I failed. And there's no pro. There's 8 NWSL pro teams. That's it. None of them really have true academies. So that's the magic trick that has been played upon these girls. And, if you look historically, there's sobering numbers that I think girls don't know. That if you look at age group of the current, even if you took the current 25 national team players, senior national team players by age group, it's not a good stat to show most girls that are playing club soccer that, but you can still be a pro. Like AC Milan has a women's side. Barca has a fantastic women's side. They even have a fantastic B side. So there is that narrative, but that's not being taught or shown to these girls. So it's either I go to these big time Power 5 conferences or I'm a failure. Or I make the national team or I'm a failure.
Like you just said, Power 5, they have to go to college, which ultimately, that's the cultural issue of the game here. Like we've talked about, the goal is go to college because for your friend, they're going to leave La Masia and go to college versus Alexis Sanchez. His story was he grew up in the mines in Chile. And it was either go to work in the mines with my brother, uncle, and dad. Well, hell, I know I don't want to do that. That sucks. So it was either do that or get on the ball every day. I want to do that. That's their only way out. There is no college. There is no, MBA grad school program that doesn't exist in these areas for players in the world game, and that's not the case for the majority of the American soccer game, unfortunately. So it's
And there is other leagues that both boys and girls. On the girls side, there's WPSL, and there's there's another UWS, United Women's Soccer League. So it's the college players playing it, some pro older girls playing it. Some youth players get a chance. My daughter was going to be rostered on one of them, in all honesty, this summer. So it was a big thing that we were looking forward to happening. A lot of the youth national team pool players are in it too as well, but it's not funded. It's not utilized as getting 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds being able to play with older women who are seasoned pros who can't make any money, but having them see that they're not making any money, but you can get in that environment, in that semi-pro environment, and learn the game. That's not being funded very well. There's no status given to it. It's almost anti-status. If you do that, well, I mean, you're going to miss out on your last DA ECNL showcase, and then your coach is going to be mad, so you shouldn't really do it. But that needs to be valued more if you can, to try to attain that level, and it's just not,
What do you think of the fact that, like you said, the Barca side, the Lyon in France is an amazing women program. Man City has a ridiculously amazing women program. Italy's developing fantastically. Spain's developing incredibly. Do you think that as maybe not I don't know about your girls, but you're more in that age, would you consider going to Europe instead?
I would have stayed there last summer if I could have. I had to leave. I stayed as long as I could. I wouldn't have come home. Not just me. I didn't really like Europe. I'm big. I'm 6'5". Like, I don't do public transportation very well. You know what I mean? Like, I'm used to my car and being in LA and doing my thing. My daughter was 100% fine. She figured out the transit system. She had her little tickets. She had the digital passes. She was fine with it. Like, she would have stayed, no problem, if she was allowed to or had an EU passport, hands down. Not a problem. Yeah, wouldn't have come back.
But I think that's where the American system, not the American system, I'm sorry, I think that's where a lot of American girls are going to start to go, because as fast as it's developing abroad, and some of these teams are really good, like fantastic good. I mean, all of these, and I think some of these leagues are better than the men. They have more competition in some ways. I mean, I look at the Italian league, there's 3 or 4 teams competing for the first place. France may only have 1 or 2. England has 3 or 4. Spain has 3 or 4. I mean, it's really good. Do you think girls are going to start moving them? Do they even know that that's an option these days? You do?
They do. They know. I mean, so how crazy we think that we are, I can tell you parents that right now, that I know a parent right now who is in the process of trying to get their daughter Italian citizenship by descent. So they're actually pulling up death records of relatives in order to get to a very big black and white striped club in Northern Italy. They're doing that right now. I know, people who are, who have gone to Man City and training with the U17s, and have that grandparent that was born in, England. So yeah, parents know, kids know, girls know. It's just, can you do it? The financial cost of it is hard, and do you have the ability to play there, and do they want you? That's part of it, but girls know.
Well, the one good advantage of places like City, the unmentionable black and white team, because you cannot possibly be happy with that team. Hey, I grew up hating them, so
I know, right?
Can't like the good black and whites. But even that team, they have the structure. Milan has a ridiculous infrastructure. City has a ridiculous infrastructure. Barcelona, of course, Real Madrid is just building it right now, and et cetera, et cetera. Lyon, like we said a few minutes ago, they have amazing infrastructures. That makes it, yes, it's expensive to go there, expensive, all of that. But once you're there, you really isn't, because
No.
you stay within the confine of their place. You know, if you go to the black and white team, they have their own hotels. The
Yep.
Milan has their own, not a hotel, but they have apartments and stuff like that where all the kids stay together. And I'm Inter, same thing. City, I believe, has the same thing, whatever they call it. So you have all of these different things that you can do. So once you're there, it's not that expensive, except for the fact that, you know, you're in another country and you have to find a job.
Right.
But for your kid itself to play, it's really not that hard anymore. It's actually more, I think it's actually better, because you're always together, always with a group of kids. You have someone who always follows you, make sure you go to school, make sure you do your homework, make sure you go to practice. So you're always like more protected in a sense, more confined structure where you can just be a kid and do your homework, go to school, but also then, of course, play and let's see what happens if you move up. Because obviously, who knows? But that is, I think the more that you're, and hopefully the one hope that we all have is that this whole COVID doesn't hurt the development of the windowing game abroad, because that is it's a big of a concern right now, because money is drying up by so fast that is a concern, and hopefully that won't happen.
For sure.
It has exploded in the last few years.
It had. It might slow it down and stop it for a little bit. I think you're right on that. I mean, that's probably, I mean, if you have a choice between cutting your men's side or your women's side, listen, you're going to cut your women's side or alter it a little bit, but, you know.
I know. So, all right. Well, I think we can go on for another 4 hours, but what parting words, what should we say in this crazy world as parents / coaches? What should we look for post-COVID? Are we going to be optimistic, or we think everything's going to be just the same?
It's a good question. I would say it kind of depends on the culture that we're in. I know there's some changes going on in our local landscape. Like there was an announcement yesterday of there's one big club and then another pretty big club and another kind of below. Well, like 2 and 3 just formed like an alliance and partnership to provide opportunities. You know, that could be, again, we had to talk with our players today, not about that, but just about like the corona COVID situation. Like if you think it sucks, you're probably right. If you think it's great and you get time to chill, you're probably right. Like whatever your perspective is, you can kind of talk yourself into anything. You know, so I think it's a matter of, and what it'll take here in our culture is more collaboration and cooperation, not necessarily between the clubs, because I don't think that'll happen. Just it's so competitive. But
Never
between the layers of club leadership, board, with coaching and directors, with staff, with parents, and all of those entities aligned and supporting the player, which is ultimately what it should be anyway. I mean, we're dealing with people's kids, you know, which we all have kids who play sport. And I think a lot of times, I know for me, it changes. I was a coach before I had kids, and my perspective shifted significantly on April 17th, 2003, when my first was born. And like, once you kind of start to shift, like you can't really go back to think the same way, you know, because ultimately that's what we're dealing with. So
happy belated birthday, by the way.
Oh yeah. Thank you. He's 17.
17.
Typical 17-year-old. He knows it all for sure. Dad knows nothing.
Of course. You're just dad. What do you know?
That's it.
What about you, Joe? You think we can be optimistic, or do you think it's going to be, who knows?
I mean, I have a bad side and a good side like anything else. So I'll say, I think the first part of it is that I think the game is going to change. I think, unfortunately, the two biggest things that will be affected by this forever long it goes, even if it stops tomorrow, it's still going to be affected, is I think seniors and juniors, so 02s and 03s, might age out of soccer, of youth soccer. And because the seasons are going to be chewed up and there's just not enough. So how that affects recruiting for them I think it's a big thing. I think this landscape of college soccer, the longer we go, will be affected, whether it's the loss of a season, reduction in scholarships or coaches. I think that will eventually probably unfortunately happen. And then I think also the other thing is, even for me to say, is coaches. I think will be either asked to coach a great number of teams, or will just have to go on to other careers, and getting them back might be a problem. And I also think clubs are going to merge, because you can't have small clubs now trying to operate, or it might be smaller clubs are more streamlined to operate and more community-based might be the place where it goes. That I haven't figured out yet and seen where it's going to go. I'm more apt to a community-based club. Staying local and doing that might be better than the big conglomerate, but we'll see how it plays out. My optimistic side is, what I tell my kids also, is soccer in itself is not going to change. Things have happened in the world before. They'll happen again. There's still going to be a ball. There's still going to be the field, and there's still going to be you. And it's up to you what you want to do with it. But the game is still going to exist. Trust me on that. People are going back onto a soccer field at some point in your life. And now, if you want to be there, here you go. Here's the backyard. So that's gonna stay the same.
Well, thanks, guys. I really do appreciate your time. And it's good for people to hear what the perspective from parents and coaches too, because I think that's a big part of what we're trying to do here with the film. I know I had spoken to Tristan before. Joel, it was great meeting you today. But yeah, this is, like I said, this is what the movie's about. It's like, who are we doing it for? And this is, everything is on the kids, and we need to stop focusing on the adults. It's to them and whatever they need. So I really do appreciate your time. I'm sure we'll talk again once we can actually film. And if not, I'm sure we'll have some fun arguments on Twitter.
For sure.
Sounds good.
Sounds good, man.
Have a good one, guys.